Hello class, welcome to the second half of the tutorials. So in this video we're going to be talking about how to export a skeletal mesh. I was considering about doing an instructional video on doing a rig, but I figured there's probably a hell of a lot better tutorials out there than what I can muster up. But that being said, if you want to do a skeletal mesh and you're not sure how to approach it, give me an email, let me know, and I can give you some advice on where to go. Alright, so what we're looking at here in my scene is something very similar to what we had in the last one. First off, my geometry is exactly the same. They're all nested together just like this, and that's actually going to be a problem in just a minute, but we'll get to that as we get to it. What I have is a skeletal system, and if we highlight that real quick, you can see what I have here is a base bone, which leads up. That's not helpful. Which leads up into about the middle of well, not really the middle, just around about here. And what I'm using this as is like a transition point from here to other positions. So from this bone, I have a bone controlling the rotation of the spindle here. I have another bone that handles the governor, and more pieces that do the rest of the arm. One that's doing the record. I can just play this through real quick. And one that does the record arm itself. And what you'll see is that I've parented these curves to those bones, and I can just animate just like this. Really nice. Much better than grabbing individual objects or bones for that matter. So you can see there's quite a bit of stuff going on here. That's this rotate, that's right. And we even have a little bit of this going on, which I don't think works correctly. Yeah, the orientation is not quite right. Rigging up takes a lot of time. I did this in, a half hour or so, so it's not very good. So when you're taking your time with your rigs, it'll take you all day, I think. It usually takes me, well, when I was doing the motorcycle asset for my video game, it took me about 2 months. And that was because I was relatively new to modeling in the first place. But, I'm not modeling, rigging, rather. It's just a lot of work, and it's a lot of relationship to items, everything from geometry to bones to controllers. It's just a hot mess. But if you're really good at it, this is something that in any industry, film or game, pays a lot of money for. So if you like it even just a little bit, practice it every day, get really good at it, and I guarantee you'll be making a lot of money one day. So let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this. So I have my controllers. They're all nestled together as well. You can see that helps the orientation of things. And now what we want to do is do a similar thing that we were doing before, where we're baking in our animation so that we have animation keys on every frame. So the portions of this mesh which I'm actually using to animate are the controls. So it's the controls which have the keyframe animation on them. But that's not relevant to us, because what we want when we export this is all the animation data to be on the individual bones themselves. You can see right here that there's actually no animation data on this bone, and that's because it's parented to this curve. So it doesn't know it's rotating at all. So that's what we have to teach it to understand its animation. So let's do that. First thing that we do is grab all of the bones in our skeletal system, and we have to make sure that we grab each one individually and that we're avoiding stuff like constraints and anything else that's not just this plain icon of a bone. And then the next thing we want to do is go up into Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation. And it's going to go through the entire timeline. So depending on how long your timeline is, it'll do what's there. So if your timeline is short and you have animation beyond it, it won't go ahead and recognize that. So you have to make sure that everything is enveloped in that space. Excuse me. So the next thing we want to do is ditch our controllers. So if I zoom up on one of these bones now, you'll see that every single frame has a keyframe on it, which means it retains all this animation data itself now. So what that means is that I can go ahead and just select all these controllers, everything that I was using to animate, and delete them. And what will happen is the animation will still play out, because the mesh is still skinned straight to the bones, and the bones now have their own animation data. Alright, so this next part's a little tricky. So the problem that we have right now is that when we were doing our rigid animations, our rigid body animations, it was okay to nestle in bodies like this. But right now, and I discovered this a little earlier today, right now Unreal 4 doesn't support this kind of geometry structure inside of an outliner in a skeletal mesh. If it's a skeletal mesh, all this stuff has to be outside, and there can't be any nesting in the hierarchy structure. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we have to get rid of all of the structure. Well, there's a couple ways that you can do that. Everybody's first instinct is to grab, whatever is out of the way. So this would be the vinyl spinner, and just middle mouse drag it outside of the main body, or maybe somewhere in the main body. Well, we can't do it. So outside of the main body, but then it disappears. And the reason that is because it's snapping straight to some random point in space. I'm not even sure. So we can't do that. Well, what if we just combine all these? Make it one mesh. Well, you can absolutely do that. But in this instance, I've run into a lot of trouble. After I combine, I delete my history, my non-deformer history, and I get an error. I keep getting errors and errors and errors. I'm just like, what's going on? I don't understand it all. And that's the frustrating thing as a tech artist, finger quotes, is that you run into technical problems way more often than other people, and you have to deal with them. You're the person that's responsible for fixing that stuff. So that's why those people are paid a lot, because I think they're like, blood pressure is way off the charts. Anywho, what we're going to do now is something a little weird. So what I'm going to do is select all of these bodies, and I'm going to duplicate them. So now I have a duplicate of all of these pieces, so I can scroll down here and select it, and we can see, yep, they're all there. The funny thing is that this is all skinned correctly, and what I want to do is first select all these objects, and I'm going to go to Skin and Detach Skin. Let's try that again. It doesn't look like. Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and combine all these. We'll let delete history deal with that crap. So mesh, combine. Alright, so now we have one whole mesh, and this is the crap that I was talking about. And it's tempting to just kind of select over it and delete it. But we run into a lot of problems just like this. This happened to lose all of its shading data. This is kind of weird. So that's a new problem. So instead of deleting all that, I'm just going to select both of these and go into Edit, Delete by Type, and then History. And then I'm going to make one more duplicate and get rid of those two. Duplicating. It solves our problems. So basically I was trying to get out of that history of when it was multiple objects. And sometimes there's a couple ways to get around that. What I just did is, first I created a copy. It was still holding on to all of its history, so I was like, okay, well, it's not deleting its history. I'll try duplicating it one more time. And that worked. Let's see what our problem is, though. Yes. This is what our problem is. As you can see, this duplicate mesh did not retain any of the skinning information, which means it's just sitting here idle. And that's not what we want. We want to have our skin weights. So there's a really awesome tool that allows us to do this. So this tool is the Copy Skin Weights tool, and it's super easy, and it's like one button, First, I have to go into animation to access it. And before I do, I want to select all the main objects that have the actual skin data. So that's all this stuff. And then I want my last selection to be everything that I want it to be copied to. In this case, it's just one piece of geometry, this one. Alright, and now I can go up into skin. Well, actually, you know what? I lied. First step is we have to make sure this is actually bound to the skeleton in the first place, because it's not going to be looking for weights if it's not bound to anything yet. So first we grab our mesh, our copied mesh, and then I'm going to shift select over the skeleton system, and I'm going to go into skin and smooth bind. And if we play real quick, we can see that it's going to be all mushy and bull. Okay, yeah, that's not exactly what we're looking for. All right, back to these steps. Selecting all of our objects. Oops, one more. And then the very last object, which we want them to be baked onto. And then we can come up here into skin. And then right down here into modify, copy skin weights. And I'm going to open up the options box. And then we have surface association. Closest point on surface. And this is exactly what we want, because what we have is a duplicated mesh. It's just all combined. So the vertices line up exactly with one another to the old mesh. Influence association, closest joint, I believe is what we want. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And now if we play our animation, we'll see that it looks like it's one piece. But, and let's save this as a new scene so we're not like, you know, tearing up our scene or anything. We want this as a new scene so that we can go back into our rigged animation data and adjust it if we need to. So now I can grab all this mesh data that's all been separated that I can't combine because for whatever reason the history behind it is just all screwed up. I'm just going to delete it. And now I have one piece of geometry, which I can rename to, what is that, F2? No. Mine's been giving me a lot of trouble with renaming things recently. That is so weird. I feel like it used to be right here. Huh? No dice. Okay. Anyways, we have all of our animation data. It's all in one mesh. And we have nothing else besides that mesh and our bones, which have been keyframed on every single frame. Alright, we have everything we need. This is awesome. We're so close to being done. So now I can just go ahead and export all. And then I want to do a new, you can see that I had quite a few iterations testing this stuff out. This jukebox is giving me headaches. It's because I didn't spend much time rigging this in the first place. If I had spent more time rigging it correctly, it wouldn't be giving me all this hassle. Anyways, oh yes, so included options. Smoothing groups, yes. Tangents and binormals, once again, yes. Reference, all this stuff is the same. Animation, bake animation. We did the exact same thing as last time when we were exporting our rigid body animation. So all we have to do is do anim test 9, export all. Alright, and now I can get rid of that, and I can find my anim test 9, click, and drag it straight into my content browser, rather. So right away it's going to recognize this as a skeletal mesh. It sees the animation data, it sees the bones, so it's like, hey, make it a skeletal mesh. Yes, please. So let's see, preserve smoothing groups on, import meshes in bone hierarchy on, import normals and tangents. Gotta love those tangents. Physical asset, our physics asset rather, not really necessary, but I'll create one anyways. Import animations, yes, we do want to do this. By default, this is not on. It's on because I used it the last time, but you have to make sure this is checked on the first time you do this. And then exported time, which means the whole length of time which I had exported. Materials off, textures off. All this is basically the same as before. I'm going to import all. Cross my fingers that this worked while recording. It's whenever I record that things go wrong. It's pretty interesting. Alright. So, the last time we played our scene, and excuse the really loud volume right now. The last time we played our scene, we had this animation data, which doesn't appear to be working. I might have accidentally deleted the animation sequence. No, anyways, we remember how it looked. It looked wonky and it was spinning all over the place. Well, let's double click on our new skeletal mesh. And we'll see, make sure that all the components are there. Yes, they seem to be. And let's English broken. Let's grab that material for the glass so that we can actually see within our... Oh, I thought I was going to get it. 5. Next time, I'll get it on the first time. So that we can actually see our animation. Alright, save that. We can close out of it. Go back into our meshes. And then I'm just going to drag and drop the animation sequence. So this is everything about the object, its geometry, its bones, and its animation. Normally when we're making a game, we drag just the asset itself, and then we assign animation in through code. But we can see, once again, sorry for the... we can see that this is not going to actually play any animation for us. But if we want to see what it looks like early on, all we have to do is drag the animation sequence in, and it'll play for us. Oh, that's so much nicer than before. So, rigging. Rigging takes a lot of work. And if you know what you're doing, it's totally worth it. Obviously, this is something that would benefit a rig because not only does it give the artist, the animators, more control, but it gives us better results also. So, depending on your object, and I know a couple of you were thinking about doing some really outside crazy stuff with your animations, and that's awesome. You just have to consider what your best platform is going to be. In this case, I would definitely go with the skeletal mesh. It looks much better, and it's just working right every single time. Very, very cool. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm going to be free this weekend to answer your questions. If you have an idea for a rig, or you have an idea for an animation and you don't know how to rig and you just need an idea for how to get going, I can get you there. There's plenty, like I was saying, plenty of really good tutorials out there for rigging and stuff. That's how I learned. But that being said, if you can't find something and you need it right away, just let me know and I can start helping you out. What else? I think that's going to be it. Oh, I know one of you wanted to do a morph target. If you want to do a morph target, what you have to do is have 2 separate meshes. One is going to be the beginning of your animation or your morph animation, and one has to be the end. I think right now UE4 supports up to 3 morph targets, but don't quote me there. I think it's best to stick with 2 for now. So stick with 2, and you'll be good. All right, that's going to be it. I will see you guys next week.